Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our career exploration panel for education. My name is Katie Shorey, and I am the president of Startup Maine and also the director of engagement for Live and Work in Maine. Our panel discussion today is being recorded and is going to be shared with schools as well as our resources page for those who are considering becoming a teacher in Maine. Live and Work in Maine has partnered with the Maine Department of Education in the hopes that a wide range of educators will come to Maine through this campaign. We are trying to attract and retain talent to the state. So whether you teach somewhere else already or aspire to become an educator, or maybe you're working in another field and you want to make a positive difference in the lives of young Mainers, we want you. There is an urgency for school districts across our state to recruit and grow teachers. The Maine Department of Education data shows that in 2022, 927 teachers retired and an additional 370 left their jobs. So this includes administrators, ed techs, classroom teachers. So we have a total of over 1,300 openings in our schools across the state. This is the most that has happened in the last 7 years. So we need more educators now than ever. So today I have a bunch of panelists to talk to you and share their experience. They are both veteran and aspiring educators who are going to share their journey. We have 4 teachers and 4 students representing Lewiston, Portland, Saco, and Biddeford communities. You're going to hear more about each panelist. But for a quick introduction, I would like to welcome Deb Newman, teacher education instructor at Biddeford Regional Center for Technology, which we will call BRCOT. Deb has 2 students participating today. We have Rafa Shakir, a senior at Biddeford High School, and Ariana Thompson, a senior at Thornton Academy. We also have Dawn Pendergrass. She's a high school English teacher at Thornton Academy and is joined by a former student and TA alum, Lydia Maxey, who is a sophomore at Endicott College studying elementary education. And lastly, we are welcoming Joanna Frankel, Assistant Director of MTSS Implementation for Portland Public Schools, and Liz Harrington, second grade teacher at Robert Commerce Elementary in Lewiston. So welcome, everybody. I'm just going to jump right in. Our first question is for Dawn. Dawn, you are a high school teacher. So can you start by telling us what you did or what did you want to be in high school and how does that connect to where you are today?
Well, I can tell you that I never thought about being a teacher ever. I wasn't one of those kids that decided that played school and I was going to be a teacher. And in high school, my interests were, it's kind of like popcorn because every class that I took piqued my interest. If I took a theater class, I wanted to be on Broadway. An English class, I wanted to be a reporter or a writer. And when I took biology, I wanted to go into medicine. And in kind of hindsight, looking back, I just love to learn. And so I entered college undeclared and never once thought about teaching, but a series of sort of serendipitous moments led me on this journey to my teaching career. So I always had a mindset of say yes, give it a try, kind of see what happens. So despite a very scant swimming background, I saw a flyer for a lifeguard training class and said, okay, let's try it out. And that led me into taking swimming lessons and lifeguard training. And I met a paramedic who was in one of my lifeguard training classes who said I should take an EMT class. And I said, yes, let's do it. And that led me into sort of in school saying, okay, maybe biology, maybe I'll go into medicine, but I really like English. I am not sure. So I kept doing both. I worked on Old Orchard Beach Rescue for 7 or 8 years, I think. Loved my time and had so many experiences. But what I discovered was I really, really loved teaching first aid, CPR, and lifeguard training classes, especially to teenagers. So in my college career, I kind of began to make a choice for graduation, and I kind of followed the English path. But I was interested in neuroscience, the brain, and how people learned. And all of these experiences and classes kind of synthesized until I had that one very strange existential moment where I was like that epiphany and I'm like, why don't I go into teaching? And it really was a light bulb moment for me. I was like, of course, teaching is exactly what I should be doing. And so I needed to become a teacher after I kind of just sort of set it into the universe. So being a teacher for me has always been this perpetual journey of learning, to instill curiosity in my students and an inquiry mindset, in them and myself as a professional. And I have always said right from the beginning that every day as a teacher is an adventure. You never know what's going to happen, kids are going to say, and what you're going to learn. So it's just been this adventure in both teaching, but mostly learning for me.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your story,
You're welcome.
Dawn. We know that teachers can have a tremendous positive impact on their students. And in fact, one of your former students happens to be one of our other panelists, Lydia Maxey, who shared that you inspired her to become a teacher. So how did you feel when you found that out?
Wow. I always had a soft spot for Lydia. She was a wonderful student in my class, but it was really quite a surprise because you don't know the impact you're going to have on students. And although we chatted a little bit about teaching, I really didn't realize that I'd had that impact in even my conversations about education with Lydia. I played a small part in her journey and just warms my heart. And every time I get to see her, I am so excited because I know she's embarking on an amazing adventure of her own.
Lydia, we're so glad that you could join us today. And I love that your story embodies the positive influence that educators have had on students, even without even knowing it, like we heard today. So can you first share some of Dawn's teacher qualities that made an impact on you?
Yeah, of course. So I chose Miss Pendergrass as the teacher who most impacted me because she truly inspired me to become a teacher. I had her during my senior year when COVID started to die down a little bit, and this was my first real experience in an honors level class, so my confidence was not really great. But from the beginning, I felt that Miss Pendergrass really saw my abilities that I didn't even know I had. Specifically, during this time, I was writing my my college essay, and my topic was a touchy subject at the time, and kind of having to go back and talk about all those issues that I had during that time period. It was very emotional. So not only did she help me write my actual college essay, but she helped me cope with a lot of the emotions that I was feeling. So that was truly impactful. And I always just felt that not only if she was an effective educator, but she was also someone who cared about her students.
Oh, I love to hear that. So a little bit more about you. You're a sophomore in elementary education. So tell us a bit about the classes that you're taking in college, and what's one piece of advice that you would give to a current high school student who is considering a major in education?
Okay, so far I've only taken the basics of education. First, I took Intro to Education and then Culturally Responsive Pedagogy, Curriculum Theory and Instruction, and then Classroom Assessment. Even though I've gone through only in the introductory level classes, I am now making so much sense of why teachers do what they do. If I do have a piece of advice for aspiring educators, I believe that education is more of a calling. So once you kind of feel those feelings of becoming an educator, they don't really ever go away. I started feeling these feelings back when I was working at Saco Parks and Rec. I started to kind of see the impact that I was giving to these young children, and I never really wanted to stop. So no matter like the stigma or anything that comes from teaching, like I would just say go for it and don't ever like look behind, because seriously, so far it's been quite a journey.
Great. Thank you for that. So switching gears, Mrs. Newman, just like Mrs. Pendergrass, you have had a long career and are now making an impact on teenagers interested in becoming teachers. You actually teach a class at BRCOT specifically for high schoolers interested in working with children. So can you tell us just a bit more about your professional career and why you made the decision to transition from teaching at kindergarten to high schoolers?
Certainly. I wanted to be a teacher my entire life. My dad was a teacher, and he inspired me as well as teachers that I had in high school. But midway through college, my life took a different course, and I left my path towards becoming a teacher and went into the banking industry for a decade and a half or so. but my desire to teach never left. So I decided to leave the corporate world, stop climbing the corporate ladder, and do something that I felt was more meaningful for me. And so I became an educator. And for 25 years, I taught kindergarten. I loved every minute of it, still love kindergartners, and would go back to it anytime. But as I approached the end of my career, I wanted to share my love of teaching with the next generation and pass the torch, so to speak. So I took this position, hoping to inspire future educators, but I have discovered that they're inspiring me even more than I inspire them. So the students here and the other students that I have in my classes just have incredible stories and incredible drive, and just will definitely change the world in a better way.
Well, I would love to hear what you are seeing or what excites you about the profession right now. Are you seeing anything different? I mean, I know you've worked with a lot of different age groups.
Yes, in my 25 years of experience, teaching has improved so much. It is so much more fluid now. There's so many opportunities through social media to learn new skills, to share knowledge and best teaching practice at the local level, global level, and with fellow educators and all over the world. So that's exciting. Rote learning has been replaced with more of a dynamic learning approach, which works so well with students of any age, and is much more engaging and meaningful and successful with learners. And technology has certainly improved education in many ways, and not so much in other ways, but it's definitely a tool that can help.
Well, thank you, Deb. Your teaching role is really unique, and the class seems so important to help create pathways for students who want to enter the field. So can you now introduce us to the two students from your program, and just tell us a bit about why you wanted them to participate today?
I would be happy to do so. The two students that are here today are Ariana Thompson. She is a senior at Thornton Academy, and Rafa Shakir, who is a senior at Biddeford High School. And ever since I met these two young ladies last spring, I have been impressed with their stories, their paths, their resiliency. They have such a depth of life experiences, and I think that has helped them to develop very strong skills in self-advocacy, in a good way, in a respectful way. They are genuine, enthusiastic, just willing to do the best that they can. They work with our preschool students in the class, and it's so obvious how much they enjoy working with young children. And I'm just excited to see how they go out and change the world.
Well, thank you. And Rafa, thanks for joining us today. I understand that your family moved to the US 7 years ago from Iraq. Can you tell us about that experience and just how your view of teachers changed when you entered the American school system?
It definitely changed for sure, I'll tell you that. Moving wasn't easy for sure, like adjusting to everything, a new language, new people, new communities. It was hard, but I was able to adjust and, just fit in. Back home, we had a completely different definition of teachers. It just seemed like it was hard to be, or to have the responsibility to be an educator. Um, it wasn't really on my plan to be a teacher, but then I came here and then everything changed. My entire image of teaching changed. We spent almost 7 hours in school here, while back home I spent 3 to 4 hours. And you don't really have that much time to get close to teachers. While here, you spend hours with them, and I saw that they have a huge effect on kids, more than they realize themselves. And I kind of just it was on my mind that I wanted to be with kids. I wanted to be that comfort person, I guess, just someone to, because when I came here, I really struggled and I needed that person to just be there for me. And I hope to be one day to someone, to be that person. I hope to be a child psychologist because I just think that the childhood like period of someone's life is the most important in their life because it just forms them into being who they are. And I just hope to help someone that day. I mean, someday. Thank you.
That's awesome. So you have had the opportunity at currently at your school to work with young children while still in high school. So what has that been like for you? I mean, I know you said you want to be you want to take this into you want to have this as your future career. So just what's it been like day to day working with young kids while you're in high school yourself?
I mean, it's great. I thought it was, I was kind of scared at first because you're going to be actually with kids, and I didn't know if I was ready for that. And we actually, like, we kind of get to, I don't necessarily play out, but like kind of be teachers. And I was like, that's kind of scary because I don't know how to really be with kids. I've never done it before. But then it's honestly one of the best things I've ever done. It's great. I love those little kids, and it's just a good experience. It just helped me know. It kind of just made it. I'm sure now that I want to be with kids.
What great experience. Thank you, Rafa. So nice to meet you. So Ariana, similar to Rafa, you have experience working with students that have different learning styles and abilities. Can you share with us how that's impacted your decision to become a teacher, and just tell us why you're so passionate about working with students that have special needs?
There are kids who have such a tough lifestyle with disabilities, and they use school as an escape or as a safe haven from school. And I know I did growing up. School was my escape from what was going on outside of school. And I want kids to know that they're safe, they're okay, they're trusted. And I want to be a role model to kids because I didn't have any role models to look up to in my life. And what makes me passionate about being a teacher is seeing their growth and their progress and the impact you make on the children. And I get to help kids in needs. And that's what I love and feel passionate about because teachers help kids and impact kids in ways that we don't even realize. And we need more teachers like that.
Oh, that is such a great summary, and I can already tell how passionate you are. So I can't wait to see what you do with your career.
Thank you.
Liz, you worked with children for many years in a social worker role before transitioning to the classroom. What made you change careers and go into education? Oh, and I have you on mute, so.
I made a career change because the agency where I worked closed. And I had been doing child welfare social work for about 20 years. And I wanted to continue to work with children and have a positive impact on their life. I have a bachelor's degree in early childhood education. And I had previously been certified as a teacher before I became a social worker. So I felt like it was a real natural fit for me to have a second career with children in education and bring the skills that I gained as a social worker into my teaching career.
So what did being a social worker, how did it help prepare you to be an educator?
Really helped a lot. I think one of the themes that I've learned in my social work career and in my teaching career, and some of what I've heard here today, is the big influence that teachers have on students. And one of the things that I bring to teaching is a real passion for helping children solve their own problems and supporting them to come to their own resolution to problems rather than being the person that makes the problem go away. So I bring that. I had been a child welfare social worker, and I had also worked with families in really difficult situations, solving really hard problems with them and supporting them. And so I bring that work that I had with families into my work with working with students' families.
And so last question for you, what advice would you give to someone who's considering a career move? Because of course, the way that we're going to get new teachers to Maine, some of them might be changing careers. So any advice for those folks?
You know, I really think teaching is one of the best careers right now. There's so many opportunities for teachers and educators across different parts of the education system. I think my biggest advice would be if you have some time to spend in a school, it will give you a whole bunch of new information about kind of how a school runs. It's one thing for us to have been through a school system. And for many of us, school, you know, elementary school, when I was a student in elementary school, is different than it is now. So it really gives you a good perspective on how school systems are right now. So I think if there's any opportunity to spend some time in a school, you'll know whether this is the dynamic place that you want to work.
And as a junior achievement volunteer, I can attest to that. So thank you for that advice. So Joanna, moving on to you. You had several roles over your career, including several leadership positions. So can you just tell us a bit about your career journey and the unique work that you're now doing at Portland Public Schools?
Sure, thanks. So I was that 5-year-old who played school and wanted to be a teacher. So I always knew that was going to be my path. Even though I knew from a young age I wanted to be a teacher, my route to becoming a teacher wasn't necessarily a traditional path. I didn't go to a traditional teacher preparation program in undergraduate school. I got a liberal arts degree and I studied lots of different things, which I actually think was great teacher preparation. When I was in undergraduate school, I always worked at the early childhood centers that were on my campuses. And then when I graduated, I went right into teaching. I was living in Philadelphia, and I started teaching kindergarten and first grade until my now husband and I moved to Massachusetts so that I could go to graduate school. And I got my master's in elementary education, became a teacher again, and taught until 2014 in Massachusetts when we moved to Maine. I quickly, once we moved to Maine, moved into educational leadership. And I took a position at one of Maine's charter schools as an educational leader, and then got my certificate to be an assistant principal from USM and moved to Portland Public Schools as an assistant principal for 3 years, and now into my current role for working for Portland Public Schools. And I support all of our elementary schools. We have 10 elementary schools in the city, 2 on the islands and 8 on the mainland. And I get to work with all of them, supporting systems of social, emotional, behavioral health for students. And it's work that I really love.
Wow, that's great. It really shows how many just different kinds of opportunities there are in education, in addition to being a classroom teacher. So can you just paint a picture for us? What kinds of positions are available in our schools, and what do you think are the most urgent roles that need to be filled?
Sure. I think we're at a really interesting time right now because of the role that schools play in our communities. And so schools are no longer just a place where children get dropped off to learn academics. Schools are now hubs of our communities, and many of our schools provide all kinds of services for students and their families. Everything from basic needs like food and clothing to dental care to social work support for students and families. And so there are just a ton of different kinds of roles that are available in schools right now. From, general education, classroom teaching, special education, teaching our students who are learning English, teaching, in specialized programs, and then all kinds of other support roles, strategists, interventionists, ed techs, coaches, librarians, psychologists. I could go on and on, but there are so many different types of roles for somebody who wants to work in a school setting.
Awesome. And last question for you, just because I must ask. So we have a lot of people who have found their way to Maine, who've moved to Maine. We're also trying to recruit new people to Maine. So for anyone who might be considering a move to Maine like you did some years ago, what would you tell them about Maine, and why would you tell them to choose teaching in Maine?
Yeah. Well, as we started the conversation, there are a lot of positions available right now. So it's a great time to move to Maine, to enter the field of education. There's so many opportunities. And also, Maine is such a big state with so many different kinds of places. And so you can live in this state and you can work in an urban area. You can work in an incredibly rural, consolidated school district. You can work on an island. I have to say, my favorite days in my jobs are the once a month when I take the ferry out to Peaks Island and I work with their school. It's such a completely unique experience, that you can find here in our state. And so I think there's just a vast array of different kinds of settings that you can work in Maine. And so I welcome people to do what I did. Come here and try it out.
Absolutely. And we've heard from a lot of folks that community is the reason why they love teaching in Maine. It's really special. They feel like the community, that the school systems, that the parents have their back. So I really appreciate everyone's time today. It was just so great to hear how many of you have entered the field of education. And it's also so inspiring to hear from students who are excited to become teachers, and we hope we can recruit and retain more educators to Maine. And that might be more teachers, as we heard. It could be ed tech, special ed teachers, administrators. So if you want to learn more, or if you want to share our resources with anyone who you might know may be interested, you can learn more at liveandworkinmaine.com/teach. There's lots of resources and videos on there, and the job board as well. So that concludes today's conversation about teaching in Maine. Thank you all for your time.